Hello and welcome to this course on how to get started with project management in economic. My name is Mille, and for the next hour and 15 minutes or so, I will give you an introduction to the project module. We'll begin by taking a look at the course agenda for today. First, I'll briefly introduce myself. My name is, as I said before, Mille, and I work in the support team here in economic. This means that I am one of the supporters that you can get in touch with, either through the chat or over the phone if you ever need assistance with anything in the program. Well, that was a brief introduction about me, so now I think we should take a closer look at what you will learn more about in this course. Firstly, we take a look at how the module itself is configured, including the groups for project, activities, and employees. So a general setup on how to set up the module. Then we will take a look on how to register time on your employees for when they have been doing some work. We'll need to register how much time or how many hours they have worked. Next, I will show you how to create invoices on the time that we just registered on the employees for when the customers have to pay for the time. So how to transfer the hours we registered over to an invoice. Then we will look at how to register costs, including mileage and outlays, and how to create invoices for these costs. Lastly, I will introduce you to some reports over the projects and how to extract and interpret relevant data from project reports. So that is the plan for this course. In this course, we will focus on the most basic functions in the project module and work on how to set up the module correctly so you are ready to begin working with the project module. Therefore, this course is for beginners. We also have another course on how to create more value with the project management, where additional features such as time off and how to include cost and sales prices in finance will be discussed. So we won't delve into these topics here, but instead we will explore a lot of basic setup and functions so you have an understanding of the foundation of the project module. So with that said, let's go to economic. I have created an economic agreement, so we can use this for this course. First, we need to add the project module to my agreement. We do this by going all the way up here on the top right and click on this icon with all of these small boxes, and this is our market. When we go here, we find all of the add-ons that you can, all the apps that you can add to your economic agreement. Here we press on the left on this tab called add-ons, and here you have the add-ons that we provide you. So here we need to find the project management right here. That's this one with the clock, and here I have to add the app. So I press over here, and then it tells me that this module costs 179 Danish crowns per month. That will be on your normal invoice when you need to pay for the agreement itself. So we agree upon that and says okay. Now you can see that I got a new tab up here in the top bar called projects, and now we are ready to create our very first project. Before we can do this, we need to set up a project group. We do this by going to the project tabs up here. Then I choose current projects, where we are right now, and then go to other options, and then choose project groups. Here I press new project group. Firstly, we need to give this project group a number. And since we don't have any other project groups already, I just give this the number 1. And before I type in the name, I just want to show you the different types of project groups that we have. The first one is called internal, and we use this type when we have projects that we undertake internally within the company that do not need to be invoiced to a customer. For example, if my company was building a new office, that is something I would handle internally, and that's something I would create an invoice on. So that would be an internal type. Next, we have external invoiceable, And this is for the work that is carried out for a customer that will be invoiced to the customer later. This is also the most commonly used type and what I'll be covering today. The next one we have is called external non-invoiceable, and May says a bit what it is, but this is work that we performed for customers, but not intended for invoicing for some reason. So for this one, I'll choose external invoiceables just so I can show you how to create an invoice linked to the project. Then I'll just type in the name, and I use the same name as the type, just so it's more easy for me to see later. So type in invoiceable. There we go. We also have these two boxes where I can put a little check mark, but we'll skip these fields regarding the inclusion of cost and sales prices in finance, as it is not a part of this course, but will be covered in the course I mentioned before if you are interested in this. We press save down here, and now we have our very first project group. What I didn't mention is that every project needs to be in a project group. So that's why I needed to create the project group first. That also means that now I can create my first project. So I click back to projects up here, and then I click on the new project tab. My company is a construction firm, and I have been tasked with renovating a villa for my client, Mrs. Møller. We need to give my project a number. Since this is my first project, I'll just type in 1, and then I have to put the project in the project group. I can search for the project group here in the field or type in the project group number, but if I don't remember any of these, I can press on this button out here. It says search in list, and here I get an overview of all of my project groups, and then just press on the one I would like to select. Since maybe you didn't saw it, I of course chose the project group that we just created because I need to create an invoice to my customer later. So I'll make sure that I choose a project group that is external and invoiceable, or else the system won't let me make an invoice later on if I maybe chose internal or non-invoiceable, as we saw right before. So I make sure to use the external invoiceable. And we need to give the project a name. So I'll just type in renovation of a villa. And down here, I choose my customer, which I said was Ms. Møller, right here. Good. Then we have the next tab over here, or the next field over here called fixed price. In this fixed price field, we have the option to specify a price if we have agreed upon a certain amount with the customer. It's important to note that this field is purely informational. It will appear on the project card and the reports, as I will show you later. It can be used as a guiding point if we want to aim for this fixed price, but otherwise the field has no functional impact. The program doesn't issue warnings or lock fields because of a fixed price is entered here on the project. However, it can be a helpful reference during the project, especially considering that projects often take a considerable amount of time to complete. It's useful to have the agreed upon price documented from the beginning. As an example, I enter an amount in this field to show you later. Let's say I've agreed with Ms. Møller that the cost for this project will be 30,000 Danish crowns. I also have the option to type in a project description if I would like to. But for the cause of time, I won't bore you with this one, but you can type in whatever you want in this one. Here I have the option to choose whether the project should be created as a main project or a sub-project. If created as a main project, it is not possible to register time or costs. Main projects are typically used when dealing with a large customer who prefers a consolidated invoice. In this case, individual projects for the customer can be created as sub-projects, and eventually the main project can be invoiced to generate a total invoice for all sub-projects. This implies that on a sub-project, both activities and costs can be registered, as I'll show you later. To showcase this feature, I will not select main project for this one, and we will be creating a sub-project. So if I don't choose main project, the project will automatically be created as a sub-project. I also have other fields over here to fill in, such as responsible and other responsible, which can be completed if there's a specific project manager for this project. If we go to the additional tab over here, I need to remember to check this one called invoice mileage. I need to check this one to have the option to invoice the mileage my employees have driven later on. So need to check this one out, and then I'll press save. So now I have created my project. That means we are ready to create some activities, and activities are the tasks that or the work that is performed on the projects. Before we can create an activity, we first need to create an activity group. So we go down here to under other setup, we have activities. And here I choose this tab called activity groups and new activity group. Here I need to give it a number. Since it's my first activity group, I just give it 1. And then we again have 3 different types to choose from. The first one is called productive invoiceable. This includes work that needs to be invoiced to the customer. And this is also the most commonly used type. So it's all the work that my employees do for the customer that the customer also needs to pay for. Next up, I have productive non-invoiceable. An example of this type is when an employee has made a mistake in their work and needs to go back to the customer and correct it. The customer should, of course, not pay for this, so it is non-invoiceable, but it's still productive work because it needs to send out an employee to do the work. Next up, I have unproductive, and this could include activities like vacation or sick leave or maternity leave or anything like that, which are non-productive work. I choose productive invoiceable just to show you how we can create an invoice upon the activities that we will create in a moment. So productive invoiceable, again, I call the activity group the same as the type, so it's easier for me to have an overview when I look at all of my activity groups. Once again, we'll skip the include cost and sales prices in finance part over here, and I'll press save. Now we are ready to create our activities. So I'll click up here on back to activities and new activity. I need to give this activity a number, and since it is my first activity, I'll just give it the number 1 and then choose a group to put this activity in. I can press on search and list and have an overview of all of my activity groups. We have only created 1, so that is of course the one I would choose. I also here have the option to create a new activity group if needed. Then we will give it a name, and this activity is for the carpentry work that my carpenter does. And then I have this one over here, where the sales price and the cost price. Here I can inform the system about the cost of 1 hour of carpentry work. I also have the option to fill in a sales price after a sales price before and after a cutoff date. This means I can tell the system what the sales price of this activity will be before a specific date. For example, I can write in that on maybe 1st of December 2023, the sales price will increase to 450, for example. So here before the 1st of September, an hour of carpentry work will cost 400 Danish crowns for my customers. But after the 1st of December 2023, it will cost 450 Danish crowns. So now the system knows that when we reach the 1st of December 2023, the price for carpentry work will increase to 550 Danish crowns. We press save and new to create a new activity. And this is of course my activity number 2. I put it in the same group, the number 1 here, the productive invoiceable. And this is for all of my painters, so it's their painting work. Oh, if I can spell painting work, here we go. And there are no upcoming price changes for the painting work, so I'll only fill in the sales price before over here, which will cost 600 Danish crowns for 1 hour. Next, we'll press save and new to create one last activity. This is my activity number 3, and we still place it in the group number 1. And this is for crafts. Good. And also here for the crafts, there is no upcoming price changes, so only fill in the sales price before as well as I did on the painting work. So that would be 500 Danish crowns. And I'll press save. Now I have created the various activities, but now I need to create some employees who can perform this work. So let's create them. We do this by going down to this tab called employees. And as you maybe have guessed, before we can create new employees, we need to create an employee group. We do this by going to other options and employee groups and new employee group. Here I give it a number. Again, it's my first employee group, so we give it the number 1 and we just call it employees. The purpose of employee groups is to generate reports that are specified for different groups. This allows us to gather statistics to get an overview, for example, of how many hours each employee group has worked. So I could maybe split it up into different types of employees, like all of my painters in one group and all of my craftsmen in another group, and then I can generate a report that shows, okay, my painters, they work way more than my carpenters, for example. So that is the purpose of employee groups. For now, we just create this one called employees and press save. Now we can create each employee. So we go press here, back to employees and new employee. And then we have the number. This is my first employee, so I give this one the number 1. Put it in a group, the group we just created, called employees. And before I type in any of this, we need to take a look on this one called time. Type, not time, but type. And under type, I need to specify the type of the employee. The first one is actually also a type. It's the blank type. And this type of employee cannot do anything on their own. And the super user or project manager must register time for the employee. And this type of employee is free of charge. Next type we have is called a time logger, and this type of employee gets their own login and can log into register their own hours. They cannot register time for other employees, and a time logger costs 79 Danish crowns per month. Next up, we have a project manager, and they also get their own login and can be set up to approve hours and invoice projects. The project manager can register time for themselves and for others, but only on projects where the project manager is registered as responsible. A project manager costs 119 Danish crowns per month. The last type we have here is a mobile time logger, and they also get their own login, but can only log into the app through their phone and register their own hours. The mobile time logger costs 39 Danish crowns per month. I choose the blank type here just to avoid any complications when I show you everything in here. So just choose the blank one for now. Then I need to give my employee a name, or they have a name, but I need to type it in. So that is my employee Carl Carpenter. Over here, we have a field called sales price before and after over here. However, if you have filled in the sales price on the activities that we just did before, there is actually no need to fill it in for the employees as well. It works in such a way that there is a small hierarchy, meaning the sales price on an activity always overrides or is stronger than the sales price on the employee. A good way to remember this is to look at the overview out here on the left. Activities are up higher than the employees, as we can see here. So the activity is stronger than the employee. So the system will always take the sales price that I have typed in on the activity over the one I could type in here on the employee. If we haven't specified the sales price on the activity, but only on the employee, then the sales price on the employee will be used instead. We have filled in the sales price on the activity, so we leave the sales price field on the employee blank. However, we have the option to specify a cost price down here. Here we can indicate the cost of having the employee perform the work on this project. For example, it could cost maybe 250 Danish crowns per hour, and this is the cost for my firm. So yeah, it is what I pay this employee hourly. Let's create another employee. So I'll press save and new. The next number, I'll give it the number 2 and put it in the same group. I also choose the type number, the type blank over here, and the name. This is Paul the painter, of course. And once again, we won't fill out the sales price because the activities rules the sales price, but I will type in a cost price, which is 250 Danish crowns. I'll press save and new. Make another one. This is number 3, still in the same group. The type blank, and this is a Caroline Craftsman, of course. And of course, again, we don't specify the sales price, but we go down here in the cost price and type 250 Danish crowns. And I press save. We are now ready to register some hours as my employees Carl, Paul, and Caroline have been out doing a lot of work. We are here under employees, and the first thing I need to do is to find the employee who has been out working. This is for the first one, we choose Carl Carpenter over up here, and then I need to go all the way out to the icon here on the right, the little clock called time. Then we get a new window where I can register the time or all of the hours that Carl has worked on a specific date or day. We choose the day that Carl has been working. He was working this Monday. And then I choose new time entry. Then I need to type in of how many hours have Carl worked on Monday the 13th. He worked for 7.5 hours. Then I need to register which project did he work on. And he was out on Miss Müller's villa and doing some carpenter work. So I'll of course choose the project number 1, which is the renovation of the villa for Mrs. Müller. And then I also need to select which activity did Carl perform when he was out working on the project. And of course, I can click out here in search and list to get an overview of all of the activities that are available. And of course, Carl did carpentry work. Good. Then we press save and new. Carl was very productive this work. He also worked on the 16th. And then I press new time entry. This day he worked 10 hours. Still on project number 1. And he still did carpentry work. And I press save. We can see here in the calendar which days have, where there have been registered hours, as the days are marked in bold. It may be a little hard to see, but they are marked in bold here. You can also click on the week out here. Then down here, I will have an overview of all the hours for the week, or get an even broader overview for the month by clicking up here on the month. I will get an overview of all the hours that have been worked during November, for example. The time entries are currently in draft status, and we can still edit or delete them if they are incorrect or should not be registered after all. I can do that by clicking the edit pin out here on the to the right. My time registrations are as they should be now, so I approve them by marking them out here, and then click Approve Selected. And OK. Then we get a little check mark out here on the right, indicating that they are approved. And that means that also means that I can no longer delete them. If I want to delete an approved time registration, I do it by reversing the time, meaning I create a new time entry with the same number of hours on the same project, but with a minus sign in front. So the opposite of the actual entry. I can do this most easily by copying the time entry. Let's say, for example, this top one, I did something wrong. Carl didn't work on the 13th, so I need to reverse this. Because it is approved, I cannot delete it. If I click out here on delete, it says the time entry has already been approved, so it cannot be deleted. Instead, I would like to reverse it. So I do this by copying it out here to the right. Then I get a complete copy of this exact one. And the only thing I need to do is go up here in number of hours and type in a minus and then press save. Then we can see that these two, they write off each other and goes to 0. So that way this registration didn't happen. The last thing I need to do is select out here to the left and tap approved selected. Good. Let's try to register time for the 2 other employees as well. So I'll go back just by tapping on employees out here to the left. Paul, he also did some work, so I need to register some time on him as well. So I choose time over here. Paul, he worked on the 9th, so I'll check that date, press new time entry. He worked for 8 hours this day. He worked on Miss Müller's villa, so it's still project number 1. But because Paul is a painter, we need to type in activity number 2, which is painting work. And then we say save and new. We need to remember to approve this one, so I select it and then press approved selected. Okay. Caroline also did some work, so we need to register some time on her as well. So we press time out here. She worked on the 14th. I'll press new time entry. She worked for 6 hours, also on project number 1. Because she's a craftsman, she performed some crafts. So I'll choose activity number 3 and press save and new. And remember to approve it. There we go. Now I have made some time registrations, and if I want to see how it looks, we can look at the project card. We do this by going up here to current projects to find the project. And then we go all the way out here to the right on this one called project card. At the top, we can see that we are looking at the project card for project number 1, including the project name and of course the customer involved, and also the fixed price that we typed in when we created the project. Below, we can see all of our time entries broken down by various activities along with the respective employees and the number of hours. So just expand this a little so you can see it all down here. So you can see this is based on recordings, and then we have time. So then it shows me, okay, this is for activity number 1, the carpentry work. And then we had Carl. We have 3 registrations on him, and we can see the hours, the quantity, and of course the cost price and the sales price. Additionally, we can see the cost price of the employee and the expected sales price. I say expected sales price because we can modify the sales price during invoicing. So it may end up being lower or higher than what was intentionally entered for the employee or activity, just so we are clear on that one. Under the tab Invoice here, it is currently shows zeros all the way down because we haven't invoiced any of the hours to the customer yet. And that actually leads us to the next part of the agenda. We need to invoice our hours so that we can generate some income for this project. Now that we have made our time registrations, we want to transfer them to the invoice for our customer. When invoicing a project, we do this under the Sales tab. So I'll go to Sales and then Customers. Then we have this new tab called Project Overview. Here it only shows the project that are invoiceable, meaning the project that is in a project group with the type external invoiceable, as we talked about in the beginning. Then I look at the specific project, and then I go all the way out here to the second icon called New Quote Order or Invoice. We press on this one, and then I chose which status I would like. And right now I would like to create an invoice. So that is what we choose. And of course, what date we need the invoice to be created on. And then I say, okay. The advantage of creating the invoice this way is that the customer and project number are already filled in. As you may be able to see here, we have Ms. Müller up here to the top left. And also right here, we already have the project registered on the invoice. So I'll make sure that the invoice will be registered on the project and I won't forget. I could have created this invoice through Sales, Invoices, and New Invoice. In that case, I would have to manually fill in the correct customer and the correct project number. So to save time and minimize errors, it is better to use the method I just showed you. Now I am on my invoice page, and here I have the possibility to click on the button called Transfer Time. Here I get an overview of all of the approved time registrations ready to be invoiced. So I can select all of them right here, or I can choose specific ones. If it was only these two, maybe I would like to transfer to this invoice. But for this one, we'll just choose all of them. And then I'll click up here on Transfer Time. Next, I need to choose a product for the revenue to be booked on. I have an item named, let's see here. I can see all my products here. I have my product number 1 here called Timer Samlet. That translates to total hours in English. And this is the product that I want this invoice to be booked on. Under line structure, I can choose how I want the lines to appear on the invoice and what details should be specified. I choose 1 line per activity, but you can choose whatever you would like. And of course, I down here choose list by and then employee name. Additionally, I would like it to be to including dates, and I also take this one off called Save Settings, so it will remember my preferences for the next time that I will be making an invoice. And then I'll say OK. Now we can see that the system have transferred all of the time, all of the sales prices, and so on. And we can also click up here on Show Invoice, just to look at how the order structure worked out. So you can see that it specifies the activity name, also the dates, and the employee that have been doing this work. Now I am actually able to book and send the invoice to the customer. If for any reason I need to undo the line structure or have transferred incorrect hours, I can delete the lines and transfer the time again, as we just did. So let's say I did something wrong and I would like to undo and put back these timestamps up back again into transfer time. So I'll just delete all of these. I'll mark them out here to the left. On other options, I choose delete selected and OK. Then when I go to transfer time, the time registrations is back. So it can't go that bad. I just need to delete the invoice lines, and then the time registrations will still be here. Before I'll transfer these over to the invoice, I also have this button up here called Write Off Hours. This is typically used if you have made time registrations or something that should not be invoiced. In that case, you can choose to offset them instead or write them off instead. The cost will then appear on the project card as if you had incurred the expense, but you haven't invoiced the customer for it. Be cautious when pressing this button, because once you have written them off, it cannot be undone. It makes sense to use it, for example, as we just did before. We had this time registration that registered 7.5 hours, but that was incorrect. So I reversed it with this time registration with minus 7.5 hours. I don't want these two lines to be on the invoice because they cancel out each other. So it looks a little bit weird if I put this on Mrs. Müller's invoice. So instead, I would like to write them off. I do this by clicking these two specifically and then press write off hours. Then we just have to say OK. And they are removed. So now I actually are left with the time registrations that I actually need the customer to pay for. So we do this again by selecting them all. Click on transfer time. If I did anything wrong before with the line structure or anything, I can change this and then say save settings again and OK. Now we are back, and now I am happy on how the invoice ended up. So now I'm ready to book and send the invoice on the tab right here. They book only for this one. And now it has been sent to my customer and it has been booked. Okay, now let us take a look on the project card now to see how the invoice has affected the project card. Let's go out here. We are back in the project over here. Let's say projects. Go under the current projects, and out here we press project card. At the very top, we can see that the invoice and the amount has been invoiced. So we see the new invoice here that we just booked. We can see the cost price of the invoice as well as the sales price and how much we actually invoiced, because there can be a difference between the sales price and the invoice price. We also have this one called without distribution, and this section gives us an idea of what still needs to be invoiced based on our registrations, allowing us to maintain a good overview. As we can see right now, it says 0 all the way, meaning that I have invoiced everything that I have also registered. Additionally, under each registration down here, we can see how much has been invoiced. So see out here, and how much the sale price was and how much we actually invoiced it for. These two ones, which were the two time registrations that we wrote off, they have this line, meaning that they were written off, they were canceled out with each other. So it means that I took care of these two, but I didn't invoice it to the customer. Good. Now let's talk a bit about the three key metrics that we see here at the bottom. The first one we have here is a contribution margin. And this is a calculation of the sales price relative to the cost price. So the cost price over here relative to the sales price, and then it states the difference between these two. And it also takes a look on what has been invoiced versus the cost price. So it's these two, and the difference between these we see down here, as well as the invoiced against the cost price. The difference we will see down here, just to see if we actually make money on this project. Down here we have the contribution ratio, and that is the contribution margin as a percentage of the sales price. It gives an insight into the profitability of the project. So we can see that we actually earn a lot from this project. We have the variance down here, and if the value out here to the right is positive, it indicates that more has been invoiced than expected based on the sales price. So this is the sales price against the invoice price down here. Because these two are the same, then the variance says 0, meaning that we invoiced what we expected from the sales price. If the value is negative, it means that we have invoiced less than expected. This can occur if we change the sales price when invoicing. I will show this later, but that is what it means. And these metrics are important for assessing whether the project is profitable and if adjustments needs to be made to pricing or costs to make sure that you actually gain value from the project. Now, let's take a look at the costs you would like to associate with the project. And this could include materials, for example, that you have purchased and need for the project. First, we need to create a cost group. And we do this by going out here to cost types, other options, and here we choose cost groups and new cost group. We give it a number. Since it's my first, we'll give it the number 1. And then again, we have some different types. We only have 2 this time. The first one is invoiceable, and this is the type we choose if we need to transfer the costs to an invoice, and the customer should pay for it. I can also choose a non-invoiceable if the customer should not pay for the course in the end for some reason. I choose invoiceable just to show you how to transfer the costs to the invoice. And I'll give the name the same as the type over here. Then we have this field called markup percentage. And here we can set up the system to automatically calculate what the sales price should be compared to the cost price. For example, if I always want the sales price to be 10% higher than the cost price, I can type in 10 over here. Then the system will automatically do this calculation for me. Then we also need to set up some accounts down here. This is because we cannot avoid having it finalized or book it. So here the cost groups differs from the other groups we have created so far. When associating costs with a project, you do it through accounting, and here you replace an account number with a cost number instead. This is why the cost number is linked to our cost group, because the group controls the actual booking, meaning where the cost should be booked. In our standard setup, or in the standard chart of accounts, we get some accounts for this purpose. Here in this one called account ongoing, I will choose account 565050, also called igangværende arbejde or ongoing work. And down here in account closed, I choose 7227 called omkostninger afsluttede projekter. Will roughly transfer us to costs for closed projects, I believe, and choose this one. When I now create a cost associated with the cost group and I book something on that cost, I will be able to see in my accounts that the expense is on account 5655 as long as the project is ongoing. When I finish the project and I close the project, the value will move from account 5655 to 1327, meaning the value is moved from the balance up here up to the profit and loss. It is also possible to write the same account in both ongoing and down here in closed if you don't want the amount of the project to be moved between the balance and the profit and loss. Here you would instead enter the profit and loss account in both ongoing and closed. So if I didn't want this move, I'll put in 1327 in both fields right here. It is totally up to you, and if you are in doubt, please consult with your bookkeeper. Good, then we press save. And now we are ready to create some costs. So let's say back to cost types and new cost type. This is of course my cost number 1, cost type number 1, and I need to put it in a group. I use the invoiceable group that we just created, and I give it a name. This is for carpentry materials. And over here, I have the option to choose a VAT code, and the VAT code will be suggested when we book the cost in the journal. So for this one, I'll choose the I-25 right here, and then say save and new. We will create another cost type with the number 1, with the number 2, group number 1, and down here in the name, we call this painter materials. And of course, choose the VAT number I-25 and then save and new. You make one last cost type, and this is for craft materials. And choose VAT code I-25 one more time, and then save. When we need to register these costs, we do it through the accounting tab. So let's go to accounting up here in the top. I go to my journal and press new entry. In the type, I will choose supplier invoice because I have made a purchase from one of my suppliers where I bought some materials that my employees need to use to perform their work on this project. So we need to fill in the invoice number and of course choose the supplier that I received the invoice from, and that is my supplier in this case. We type in the amount and I type in a text. Let's just call it wood. I would like to associate this entry with a project. So therefore, I won't fill out the country account, but I will check this project box. If you look here at the country account, when I check the project mark, you can see that it changes from country account to cost type number instead. And here I choose the cost type for carpentry materials or whatever I would like. So for this cost type, I choose carpentry materials. And you can see that it also came up with the VAT that I just chose on the cost type. Under additional, I need to remember to specify the project. Here we have the project number, and I need to specify which project are these supplies for. And that is, of course, the renovation of Mrs. Müller's villa. And I can specify an employee as well if I would like to. That is actually all I have to do. So now I can press save. And I have actually registered the material purchase for my project. It could also happen that I had a larger supplier invoice and therefore bought various materials that need to be linked to my project, and therefore the same supplier invoice needs to be booked on several cost types. So let's try to create that together. First, we create a new entry. Once again, I choose a supplier invoice over here, type in the invoice number and the supplier. Here we go. And then the amount of the invoice. We make sure that we do not check the project box. It seems a little off, but trust me on this one. So I'll make sure to put in the supplier, the invoice number, the amount, of course, entry number and date and all of that stuff. But I won't fill in the contra account. And this is important because when I haven't filled in the contra account, I have the option down here to press save and continue. So I press save and continue, and it creates a new leg on the entry. So now I am able to distribute the costs. So we have made this entry that will affect my supply, and now I'll make the entries that will affect the cost types. So in this invoice, or in the supply invoice, I bought some paint for 3,000 Danish crowns. So I'll make sure not to select a supplier because I did that on this entry. I'll just type in the amount, which is 3,000 Danish crowns. For this one, I'll check the project box down here. It changes to cost type number, where I choose painter materials. And in the text, I'll type in whatever it is. So I'll say paint. And make sure to go under additional and type in the project number. Good. Then we can see that we still need to distribute another 2,000 of the 5,000. We have distributed 3,000 at the moment to this cost type, but we still need 2,000 for it to be matched. So I'll press save and continue once more. The amount is the 2,000 Danish crowns. For this one, I have bought some craft materials, so I will choose my cost type number 3 and type in whatever text. It could be craft materials. And then we can see that the entry balance is in 0 because we have booked 5,000 Danish crowns on the supplier and distributed 3,000 Danish crowns on my cost type number 2 and 2,000 on my cost type number 3. So it matches out. And then I'll press save. Oh, I need to add project number. We go to additional and type in a project number here. And then I'm ready to press save. So in this way, we can easily distribute one total supplier invoice to several cost types. Of course, you can also distribute to different projects if you have more than one for a single invoice. If you find it a bit annoying to switch between the general and additional tabs for when we need to put in the project number, you can edit the order of the fields that are displayed. So we do that by pressing new entry right here. And then at the top right up here, we have the option to edit field order. Here I can drag the project number from the additional tab over to the general tab. So just drag it over and put it in somewhere where it makes sense, down here. Put a little bit further down, otherwise it will look a little bit weird. And I also have to, or I could also take the project name and put it over here as well. If I go up under the field order up here and say save as new, then I can create a little name. Let's say this is for the project template. Then I have the option to save this as a new template. So when I create a new entry, I can see, let's try to say save and apply here. So when I create a new entry, I have the project number and the project name here on the general, and I don't have to switch between additional and general because it may be annoying for some. Great. Let's book these. So I'll just mark them all and tap book entries and book out here. Let's take a look on our project card to see how the cost looks on the project card. Go to projects up here and all the way out here to the right on the project card. Good. On the project card, we can see that the various costs has been added to the project card down here. Let's see costs right here. And then we have the different cost types specified out here, and with the different tasks or text, and with the cost price and sales prices and so on. And maybe with some quick math, if you're good at math, you could see that the selling price is 10% higher than the cost price. As you may see here, the sales price is 10% higher than the cost price, which is due to the markup percentage we set on the cost group to make sure that we actually earn some money of this project. We can also see that we need to invoice the costs, as there is a 0 next to them under the invoice column, as you can see out here. So that indicates that we haven't invoiced these costs to the customer yet. Before we start invoicing, I would like to show you how we register some mileage. And before we can do that, we have to do some setup before we can make our registrations. We do this by going to projects again, where we are, and then under employees, then other options and mileage setup. Here I specify both a sales price before over here and a sales price or cost price before, and here we just use the rates that the state provides. So this is 13.44, and this is also 33. I said 13, but 3.44. There we go. And okay. Now I can register the mileage for my employees. So Carl Carpenter, he just called me and says he needs to hurry to the hardware store to buy some screws that he's missing to do his work. We want to register this mileage, so I press the mileage icon out here next to Carl. In the calendar up here, I choose the date that Carl Carpenter made this trip. So let's say 17th of November, and then I choose a new mile entry. Of course, the date, I can change it. And then I need to state which project he drove for, or he did this trip for. And that is, of course, still my project number 1. I need to type in where he drove from and to. So he drove from the customer to the hardware store. And then I need to type in how many miles did he drive, and he drove 10 miles for this one. And then I'll press save. We can see in the calendar which days have registered mileage as the days are marked in bold. Of course, you can always also click on the week out here, or click on the month to show the whole overview for a month or a week. Then we need to approve the mileage, and we do that by clicking out here, set a little tick, and then click approve, and then OK. Then we can see that it gets a locked tick, meaning that the mileage is now approved. There is another way that we can register mileage, and it is when we register time. Once again, there is a bit of setup. This is under current projects up here. Then we edit my project out here on the pen, and then go to the additional tab up here. Here at the very beginning of the course, I checked the invoice mileage box that we see up here, so that I had the option to invoice mileage on the project. There's a small field below right here where I can specify how many miles my employees drive. It could be that we only registered the miles they drive between our office and the customer, for example, which is a fixed maybe 10 kilometers or 10 miles for all employees. So I enter 10 right here and press save. When I then go to an employee to make a time registration and select Carl Carpenter here, we go out to the time out here, press on the date that he worked, new time entry, the number of hours, 8 hours, choose a project and the activity that he performed. Then I can also check the mileage box down here to tell the system that since Carl worked for 8 hours, he also drove the 10 miles that we stated up on the project right before. And then I say save and new. Now we can see both a little mileage down here where it says yes. I just need to approve this. One moment. Approve. There we go. So we can see that I have a green tick mark out here under approved, and I have under the mileage, I have a yes. This means that the hours is approved and the mileage is registered. Now I just need to approve the mileage for the employee under Carl Carpenter. So we'll go back out here on employees, choose Carl Carpenter, under here the mileage. We now have a new mileage entry, which were made from when we just registered the hours before. And I just need to click the box out here and then approve. The last type of expense we can create is expenses. And Carl had to go to the hardware store, as I just mentioned before, to buy these screws, which he paid for himself. So now I can create an expense on his behalf. So I go back to the employees out here, and then I go to Carl, and this icon right here is expenses. Here I choose new expense, and I need to write a little description. Purchase, maybe not in capital letters, purchase of screws. I need to state which project is project number 1. We also need to state which cost type. Since Carl is a carpenter, we use carpentry materials. And of course the amount that he paid, and he paid 100 Danish crowns. And you can change the currency here as well if you need to. And then I press save. Here out to the right, we also have the option to attach a document to the expense. So if Carl maybe took a picture of the receipt from the hardware store, I can attach it to the expense itself. When I'm ready and happy with how it looks, I mark it and click Approve and Book. Now I need to choose a contra account. And if you have our standard setup or a standard chart of accounts, you can eventually choose the account called skyldige medarbejderudlæg, roughly transferred to employee advances payable, called 6835. Oh, that's the booking day. No. Down here, 6835. And this is the account I would like to book this expense on. And down here in the heading, I can simply write Carl's expense, maybe. That is totally up to you. And then OK. Then it generates the document for the expense itself. If I want to save it on my computer, it can be done by the button download up here if I would like to save it, but we can always find it in e-conomic if necessary. And we do this by going to this tab called Booked Expenses. Here we can see all of the booked expenses that we have made, and out here I can press on Show Entry, and it will then show the document for the expense itself. So now we have been over the different types of expenses that we can register. So let's take a look at the project card again. Let's go up here to current projects and all the way out here to the project card once again. You know the drill by now. And now we can see that there is something in without distribution. This was 0 before, but now it has changed a lot actually. And this means that we have a lot of registrations down here that we haven't invoiced yet. And that is of course all of the mileage and all of the costs that we just had has registered. So also I showed you down here, further down, we can see all the expenses that have been added both for the material purchase, the mileage up here, and also for the expense down here. Let me just find it right here. This is the expense, and this is of course the purchase of the materials, and then we have the mileage up here that we also created. So now we need to invoice what is left to be invoiced. So let's do that by going to sales once again, then down to customers, and then to project overview. I find the project out here and then choose the button new quote, order, or invoice. I choose invoice and OK. Now we can use this one called transfer costs and mileage. The button here. Here I can check the expenses I want on the invoice right here. We just choose all of them and then choose transfer costs. Then I need to choose the product. I have the product called materials right here that I would like to book this cost on, or this revenue on. And we once again have a line structure down here where I choose one line per cost type, but you can choose whatever line structure you would like. And I would like to save the settings for next time. And then OK. So I also just created an additional time registration that we also need to include on this invoice. So we go over here to transfer time, choose the time registration, press transfer time. It remembered the settings from before, which means I don't have a lot of work to do here. I just press OK. And as I mentioned earlier regarding the project card, that we could see the expected sales price. This means that I can still change the sales price on individual lines here on the invoice if the price needs to be higher or lower when invoicing for whatever reason. So maybe actually my painter materials right now, the total sales price is 2,640, but actually I would like it to be 3,000 Danish crowns. So I'll go out here on the edit pen, and then I'll change the price here to 3,000, and then press save. Good. Now everything looks perfect to me. We can take a look at the invoice here to see how the line structure worked out for us and see if we are happy. I am very happy, so I'll make sure to book and send the invoice to Miss Müller so she can pay some money to us. So let's take another look at the project card under the project module right here. Back to projects, current projects. We go all the way out here to the project card. We can now see our new invoice right here at the top, and also down here under without distribution, we can now see some pretty zeros, meaning that we have invoiced everything registered on this project. So it also is an indication of that we are up to date on invoicing. We can also quickly check the invoice column out here, where you can see there is now something all the way down. There's stated an amount all the way down, indicating that we had also invoiced everything. Additionally, I can see that I have a contribution margin down here of 7,504. This is again the sales price against the cost price. And over here, I have the invoice versus the cost price on 7,864. Also, the contribution ratio says about the 37%. And then we now have a variance of plus 360 Danish crowns, meaning that I have invoiced for a higher amount than expected. And that was because I changed this one, the paint right here. We changed that from 2,640 to 3,000. We did that on the invoice. So my expected sales price was these 2,640, but I actually invoiced the 3,000. And that now means that I have invoiced for 360 Danish crowns more than what I expected. And that also explains why there is a difference between the contribution margin under sales price and under invoice, also down here in the percentage. Now that we have completed the renovation of Mrs. Müller's villa, it is time to close the project. And we do this by going to current projects and then all the way out here to more, and then close project. It is crucial to be certain that the project is finished, because once a project is closed, it cannot be reopened. And also pay attention to the accounting date to ensure the closure happens in the correct year. The project closure will generate system entries and account movements, and these occur on the accounting date that we choose here, or the booking date that we choose right here. If there is any doubt about whether the project is finished or is ready to be closed, you can choose to bar the project instead of closing it. You can do this by editing the project. Let's just try it right here. If I edit the project and then I go to additional, and under access, I can choose if the project is open or if it's barred. If I choose to bar the project, it is not possible to register hours, mileage, or book invoices to the project. In this way, you can temporarily close the project, but have the option to open it again if necessary. So if I choose barred and save, I won't be able to register all of these things that we just did, and I won't be able to make invoices on the project. So this is like a temporarily way to close the project if you are not sure that you are ready yet, but you want to make sure that nobody can mess up the project in the meantime. When you are 100% certain that you are ready to close the project, you can close the project by navigating to more and then under close project, as I just mentioned. And we also say OK. It now tells me that the project is closed and the selected projects have been closed. And that also means that it has moved from current projects. You can see that it's totally empty here. It has moved from current projects down to closed projects. Here you can see any notes on the project, and you still have the option to view the project card out here. So I can show the project card as we have looked at many times, and I have the option to write notes if I need to do that for some reason. Let's wrap up by looking at a couple of the reports available in the project module. Let's do this by going to the reports tab, and all the way out here at the bottom, you can see that when I added the project module to my agreement in the beginning, I also got a lot of new reports. So the first one I would like to show you is the project balance. Here I just make sure that I will show closed projects just to have something to show you, and then OK. This report displays a summary similar to the project card, providing a calculation of the contribution margin based on the invoice price versus the cost price. Out here, contribution margin, the cost price versus the invoice price. The advantage here is the ability to view this information across multiple projects, gaining a comprehensive overview on a single page instead of looking at each project card on each project. That can be a little bit difficult. So this report helps us see a project card for all of the projects at once. I can, of course, fill out all of these search criteria if I want to have a more specified search, but I can also leave it blank, and then it will show me everything. If we go down here to project variance, I will show you that this report illustrates the coverage on your projects, showing how much you have invoiced compared to the sales price. It allows you to see the fixed price, as we talked about in the beginning. We have the invoice amount, and importantly, whether there is a variance out here to the right. Then I would like to show you employee statistics, and this report provides an overview of your employees' productivity. So you can see the productive hours out here, both the invoiceable and non-invoiceable hours, and the productive hours in total. We also have the unproductive hours here, and of course the hours in total. Then the system also calculates an efficiency showed in percentage in relation to unproductive time. So it compares the productive hours in total with unproductive hours, and then gives you a percentage. And you can see that my employees are very efficient. And also we have some details about the cost price, the sales price, and invoice, and also the profit out here. And this is, of course, specified on each employee to see who makes the most money. With that, we have covered all of the points on the agenda, and this concludes this course. If you have any questions about what we have covered in this course or anything else, feel free to reach out to our support via the email, chat, or phone as displayed here on the screen. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.